Alright, well, we've started disassembling presses here, and we've got the main one that we want to machine the body on off. We've disassembled it now. This would have been a die casting. You know, you can tell because of the sharp corners and everything. Permanent die. Now see, what's going to happen is we're going to cut this off right here. I've stripped this out pretty much completely, and then I put the outer ring back on and the carousel itself. So what's going to happen is we're going to cut this off, so while it's still all bolted together, we're going to drill another hole, drill and tap it right there to move the screw down, and then cut that off, and then we're going to bore this hole. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring it out so that it intersects, or the edge of it's pretty close to right there, and then we're going to, this would be facing me, so this is the front of it. We're going to bore this hole here, and we're going to crowd it this way so that we're just inside this boss. So our hole's essentially going to sit right in here, in this area, but we're going to be close right to the edge of that boss. Seems to be the about the proper position. That's where this one is, awful close to it, and on the one set up from the factory, why that hole is close to this front boss. So, and we can crowd right up to the edge of this where it's recessed. The reason we need an ejector spring in here is the later castings that have got the auto index, this surface right here, this upper surface, it extends on out. Yeah, we're indexed. That surface at this level extends on out here, and that acts as the ejector itself. So it's recessed down there, and then the shell comes up and bumps against that. So since we don't have that here, we'll fit a wire down in there, spring wire, and we'll show you that when we get that far. The next thing to do is we're going to set it up on the mill table. We're just going to clamp it down. We've got a nice flat surface on the bottom between these two bosses and these edges, why it sits flat there. We're just going to clamp it down on both edges, hold it solid. We're going to go ahead and drill and tap a hole just about here. We don't want to interfere with that mounting hole, but just about there is where we're going to put it, centered up. Once we get that done, we're going to take the outer ring off. We'll go ahead and cut it, and then while we've still got that set up, we'll measure exactly where we want our hole here, and then we'll go ahead and bore it, all in that setup. And then that's most of the machining. I think that's actually all of the machining that we have to do on this particular casting. So anyway, we'll get it set up in the mill, and then we'll take a look at it, see what she looks like. So we're just going to go ahead, we'll set it up on the mill table, we'll index it relatively straight. It doesn't have to be super precision, so we're not going to be super precision with it. We'll center up on the center of that retaining ring, drill our number 21 hole, I believe it is, which is the tap size for 1032. We'll drill that down deep enough, then we'll go back and we'll counterbore the top for number 11, which is a clearance hole for 1032. Pull the retaining ring off, and we may tap it in the mill, we may just pull it back out and tap it. That's not that big a deal. We can tap that with a tap guide quite easily. Then while we've still got it in that position, we'll go ahead and undo the outer ring, and we'll lay out to bore our hole here, and I'm going to bore it with a boring bar. I'll drill it out to close to size, and then we'll finish boring it, just because it'll give it a little bit nicer finish. I've already taken the dimensions off of it. Our rib underneath is just over 1/4 inch, 0.270, and we want to be, we're going to put a 1-inch hole in there, so we're going to come approximately a 1/2 inch off of this front edge right down in here. We'll come just a little bit more than 1/2 inch, but there again, not precision. We just want to eject out and have our hole for our shells to drop through. Already measured it here. Just the outer edge of this ring is right at a 1/2 inch from the inner relief here for our shell holder. So we're going to come just about there, maybe a little bit more. Our rib is 0.270, as I said before, and we're going to come 1/2 inch in from that, so we're going to come in 0.770 approximately, and we'll just set it up with an edge finder, and we'll run it back in with the DRO. So nothing precision there. Drill it and then bore it. Well, here's our little quick and dirty setup for machining this casting. All I did to index it up, we've got our clamps set up there, nothing's tightened down yet. All I did was set me in an upright, got it approximately straight up perpendicular, and then we run that back in, and that's the edge of our casting. Same way on this side. Exact same thing. right there, and that's plenty close enough for this casting. So we'll go ahead and we'll tighten that down. Go ahead and pull our ring off now that everything's positioned. Okay, and after we get back over the bench, we'll trim that off to where it needs to go. Okay, we had to change out drill bits. We've got our depth set there on our digital readout, and let's go ahead and pop that hole down first. That'll be plenty deep right there. Now, okay, we've got our mark right there for that position. I think we'll and set up an edge finder. Half inch, let's move it back over a quarter. Visual reality check. Yeah, should be right over the top of that. Now the rest of this is not that critical. Well, none of this has been that critical. Let's go back to okay, so we want to come on over 270. Okay, that should be the edge of our rib. Yeah, that'll be approximately the inside of the edge of our rib. Let's go ahead and pick up our center mark. We actually wanted to go 770 over. Okay, there's our Y position. Visual reality check, that looks pretty good. Now we know where we're supposed to be approximately there, so let's zero those out. That's going to be approximate. Half the diameter of the hole, which is a half inch. Right there, that looks pretty good. We're going to give it just a right there. Okay, that's where we're going to position our hole. Reality check again. Let me get my scale. Three-quarters looks pretty good there. Looks pretty good there. That's where we're going to do it. Well, there's our hole we bored right here, although we didn't think this through quite far enough. We're going to have to set it back up again. So what I needed to do, we got the hole bored with that set up, and I'll have to set it back up again. But I should have machined these off straight on both sides for the ejection. This side especially, this side's probably not so critical because we'll already be advancing out when we do that. But this side we need to run straight off in this direction just to give us clearance. And we may actually angle it back just a little bit on both sides so it starts. This transition will be pretty good, but this transition needs to come straight back here like this. This one, like I say, not so critical, just so we make it out there, and the ejector spring will pick that up and we can tune it with where that position of that spring is. But we need to relieve that area right there down to at least this deck here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the platen off. What we'll do for our spring is we'll drill it down there at an angle like that, and then we'll drill us a hole right in here at some position. I'm not sure exactly what that position is going to be yet, but we'll set that so that the spring sits down in there flush. Went ahead and relieved this corner, and I relieved this corner just a little bit. We'll hand polish that just a little bit as we get that far. But anyway, now our platen can go back on, so we know where it's supposed to index up. I don't know that we need to. So that's where it sits. Well, I think we're going to take about some 40 thousandths wire, which looks to be about what we put in the other one. And all we did on this was we drilled a hole down at an angle this way so it sat in there, and we drilled a corresponding hole here so it ejects where we want it to. And then I tuned this wire just a little bit so it's actually in kind of a bow, sits down there so it comes up just underneath the platen and doesn't interfere with it, yet it sticks up high enough that it will grab that case rim and slide it on out. So that's kind of what we're going to do with it. Let's set this back in place and see where we're going to go here. And this is kind of a trial and error, see, that's where it will originally sit. And we're going to want it to fold this out. So we're going to come probably across just about like that. If we put one right in that way, just about there, and the other probably we want to go approximately there. Let's see where that, okay, that's about where that mark is. So if we run this wire just about there, we'll run it right in there like that, and right there. And we'll probably just do this by hand. As a matter of fact, I know we're going to do this by hand. We're just going to set up a drill and drill us a couple little holes here. Thousandths wire should be strong enough. Alright, I just set up a small little burr in the Dremel just to start my holes with, just to give me a center point. one here, just like that. Once we come up to this one, it's going to, now see, we're a little bit too far out because it has to seat on that one. So we'll have to bend it back just a little bit, but then it should. Okay, we're a little too tight there. So let's form it back just a hair. About there. Come up to that position to crimp, and then out. Maybe back just a little bit more. Let's need to come up on that. Alright, we still need to go back farther. We're still not. Alright, bobbed off, smoothed up a little bit. Oh no. May have to put a spring retainer on this to hold it in position. I think we're going to leave that right there. Still hangs just a little bit, but I think once once it's installed and we're working under lever action, that's going to be awful close, and we'll fine tune it then. So that looks all right to me. Leave that there for now. That locks that spring in position, which we may or may not want. Good for right now on that part. Okay, so the platen's pretty well done. We'll clean that up. While I've got it, let's see, the next thing to do is going to be beginning to work on the advance mechanism itself. These are the components for the auto advance. This is a retrofit that fits on the back of the casting, and it sets on right there like that. So the casting has to be drilled and tapped, and it's held in place by these set screws and these 3 screws. And this one's just set as a tension screw, basically, to know how tight you're tightening it down. So anyway, there's the bottom portion, and this is the advanced portion that fits underneath. There's a hex cutout in the bottom of the center section that your nut originally fits in. What they've done is they've made a stud. This still fits up and locks in there. Your platen sits on top and goes through, and then there's a C-clip on the bottom that holds this in place. And this is the spring that goes on just like that to provide tension, and that sits up inside the casting, so that returns it to the advance mechanism. When you operate it, it advances it around, and then when you bring it back down, it releases it. So that's the way that operates. This is your pawl on top, spring-loaded pawl, and this is the new style. I was not sure exactly, because the 366 that I have that is auto index has the pull style pawl on it, and I talked about that in the last section. This was a retrofit kit that I got, and apparently the 366 that I do have that is auto advance is a fairly early model that had that style. This is the replacement style that they offer, so this is, I believe, the current design and the one they settled on. So anyway, what I'm going to do is just make me up a couple of patterns, and we'll cast those out of aluminum, which is what they were cast out of to start with. We'll have to machine up that shaft, and all the rest of this stuff I'm going to order a replacement pawl, and the rest of these are standard components. I'll order pawls, spring here, this spring, those are all available, and I believe there was and the bearings available. That's going to be a standard bearing. It's not going to be anything super high tech. But anyway, I'll probably just order one of those. Anyway, the next thing we're going to do is go to building the patterns for these 2 little parts. We'll get those built up, and then we'll cast them up. Hopefully you found something useful here. If you enjoy these videos, find them useful, you might want to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you hit the bell notification, you'll know when I put out a new video, and if you like them, give me a thumbs up, share them, and thanks for taking the time to watch.